Alright. Today's comic is Man Killer #1 from 1988. I thought I would look at this because someone wants me to look at another Man Killer comic. The reprint I have of the Barney Goodson and Simon Waltonson one. And I thought it would aggravate them mildly for me to look at this instead. I have looked at some of this series before. I reviewed the Evasion tie-in issues less than a year ago, and they were really good. So let's see how it all started out with issue 1. The cover isn't good, but it could easily be improved. Man Killer needs to be bigger, and if you only enlarged them about 20%, maybe 25%, it would be so much better. He would stand out a lot more, and many of the empty spaces on the cover would then be filled. This version of Man Killer, he is a bounty hunter, and this series spins out of two things. First is the It crossover Millennium, and the other is Suicide Squad, of which this character was an infrequent member of, and continues to appear in occasionally, in tandem with this ongoing series. In fact, this series has many tie-ins and crossovers with Suicide Squad. We often see Man Killer capture a criminal who then subsequently is drafted into Suicide Squad. A nice unspoken connection between the two books. There are more direct crossovers between them, but I like the subtle continuity and payoffs between the two. Here, Man Killer is hunting Danny DeVito, the Puffin. Puffin was an off-brand version of Penguin they used to sell at Asda. Also, obviously, a type of penguin. I feel I have to explain this every time. At DC, there are multiple characters who have used the Man Killer identity. This is arguably the main one. He is not the most popular one, but he is the main one. He was created by Jack Quimby in the 70s, and I have upwards of 7 different copies of that issue. The new version of the character that he introduced there didn't take off initially, but he was revived and expanded on in Suicide Squad, which brings us to his solo series, which shares the same writer as Suicide Squad, John Ostrander. He has a suit of armour and an energy baton weapon. He has some vague enhanced abilities. There is an entire backstory with a group of shamanic monster men, and I cannot be arsed trying to wrap my head around that. It doesn't matter much to this issue. What I want to bring your attention to is Puffin in the bath. You'd even get this in your Barney Goodson, Simon Waltonson Man Killer comics, do ya? Puffin in the tub, scrubbing himself clean. Not only is it an amusing image, but there is some humour here that isn't bad. We have a supporting character, a really stock supporting character, a policeman who isn't that keen on Mankiller and who really needs to utter the line, "I'm getting too old for this shit." We have this scene with some priests, Bishop, Damon and Buttu. He gets assassinated by a Father Charles Sutton. I realised when he pulled the gun that this scene would not receive 3 pages if they were not men of the cloth. It is actually setting up the arch enemy for this series. Father Charles Sutton, he was actually Dumas in disguise. I think he was in disguise, I didn't know. They really needed to show him taking off a mask, or with the mask in his hand on this page, but they didn't. Dumas is an assassin, a cold-blooded assassin. He is like what Mankiller would be if Mankiller gave up his morals and followed the teachings of the animal cult. Part of the problem I have with Dumas is I am aware of the revelation or the retcon that Mankiller himself is Dumas. I didn't know if that was only true in that one story, or if it was true in these stories, or if it is a retcon affecting these stories that maybe doesn't even work. I suppose that is one benefit that these issues now have. If they do reveal in them that Dumas is Mankiller, the reveal will still have some effect, because I didn't know if it was the case in these that he was Dumas. I did notice the suspicious contrast between the scenes. Dumas used a disguise, and now we straight away show Mankiller using one. But the disguise that Mankiller wears is so that he can go and meet his family. I didn't know about this either. I always thought of Mankiller as a loner. So seeing that he has this family surprised me. At first, I was thinking that he had created a secret identity for himself, sort of like Moon Man at Marvel. Since this is DC Comics, I am willing to bet money that most of this family are dead now. We get 2 pages of Mankiller mythology here, and not a good layout on this page. Really sloppy. There is plenty of the mythology that I've avoided mentioning, like the Mankiller robots, or the Steve Engeltine stuff with him being a pirate and a bad guy. His next mark is Blizzard, the Flasks rogue, and this character shows up on Suicide Squad after his capture here. Mankiller, he tracks and chases Blizzard to a subway station where a drug deal is going down. Blizzard is wanting to interrupt the deal and rob them blind. But Mankiller also notices that this is a sting operation, which Blizzard doesn't know. Mankiller springs into action to take down Blizzard. He has been working on bringing him in for days, and he doesn't want his efforts to go to waste. He beats him dead easily, and I think this is another bit of comedy here. The news reporter is only interested if Mankiller is or is related to the Barney Goodson Simon Waltonson one. Funny. Our tease for the next issue is a collector woman who wants to add this Mankiller's mask to her collection of superhero masks. I actually think this is a fascinating idea for a villain. She's not killing them, she just wants their masks. And like yesterday, she should hire me for her project. I will do research for her. Quite enjoyed this. I thought the other issues that I looked at were better, but there's bits of this that are exciting, and some random bursts of comedy that surprisingly landed. I'll give this a big game 7 thumbs up.
Dude, did that bird just say my name?